Sometimes it's the smallest requests that carry the heaviest stories. A boy, thin and hungry, walked through the neighborhood with nothing but hope in his eyes. He wasn't asking for riches, not even for food. All he wanted was $1, in exchange for washing someone's car. What he didn't know was that when the car door opened, the person inside would recognize him, and the world around them would never be the same again. The sun was dipping low behind the crowded skyline, painting the streets in shades of gold and shadow. 12-year-old Eli Turner walked slowly, his sneakers worn thin, soles flapping against the cracked pavement. He carried a rag in one hand, and in the other, an old plastic bottle filled with soapy water. He wasn't begging. No, Eli's pride wouldn't let him. Instead, he went from driveway to driveway, knocking politely, offering the same words. "Sir, ma'am, may I wash your car for $1?" Most ignored him. Some shooed him away with annoyed looks. A few tossed him quarters with laughter, telling him he'd never make it. But Eli pressed on. It wasn't about the dollar. It was about survival. His mother was sick, his younger sister hungry. A single dollar meant a loaf of bread or a carton of milk. That evening, his steps carried him to a quiet street, lined with luxury homes, shiny cars parked outside, and manicured lawns. He hesitated. He didn't belong here. But hunger pushed him forward. Eli walked up to a gleaming black sedan, pulled a rag from his pocket, and whispered himself, "Just one more try." He raised his hand and knocked gently on the tinted window. Seconds later, the door unlocked and it opened slowly. Inside sat a man, but not just any man. His eyes widened as he looked at Eli, as though he had seen a ghost. The man inside the sedan was sharply dressed, navy suit, silver tie, polished shoes that gleamed in the fading light. But his eyes weren't polished at all. They were shaken. He leaned forward, his voice low, almost disbelieving. "What's your name, boy?" Eli froze. He wasn't used to people asking that. Most adults barely looked at him. He swallowed hard. "My name's Eli, sir. Eli Turner." The man's grip tightened on the steering wheel. Turner? That name, it wasn't unfamiliar to him. "And what do you want?" the man asked, his voice sharper now. Eli held up his rag, forcing a smile though his stomach growled. "I can wash your car, sir, just for $1. I promise I'll do it real good." The man stared at him, motionless. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. Eli shifted uncomfortably, his small fingers gripping the rag tighter. Finally, the man stepped out of the car. His height towered over the boy, and the expensive cologne he wore felt out of place in the dusty evening air. He studied Eli, the frayed shirt, the bruised sneakers, the hollow cheeks. Something inside him twisted. "Eli Turner," he repeated slowly, as if the name itself carried secret. The boy lowered his eyes, embarrassed. "Please, sir, just $1." The man didn't answer right away. Instead, he glanced back into the car, then at Eli again. His expression was unreadable, a mix of shock, conflict, and something else Eli couldn't recognize. And then, with a trembling voice, he said the words that made Eli's world spin. "Boy, you look exactly like someone I once knew." Eli's hand trembled as he clutched the rag tighter, waiting for the man's response. For a moment, the silence was louder than the evening crickets. The man sighed heavily, running his hand through his slick back hair. "Listen, kid, washing this car isn't the point right now." Eli's heart dropped. He thought he was about to be turned away again, like all the other times people had brushed him off, muttering about lazy street kids. But instead, the man reached into his wallet and pulled out not $1, but a crisp 50. Eli's eyes widened. He had never held that much money in his life. "F50, he stammered. The man's jaw clenched. "Take it. But first, tell me where you live." Eli hesitated. The words of his late mother rang in his ears. "Never tell strangers where you sleep, Eli. Not everyone is kind." But something about the man was different. His suit was expensive, his car sleek, yet his eyes looked familiar, sad even. "I live down by the old rail yard," Eli whispered, "in the shack behind Miller's barn." The man closed his eyes briefly, as if the answer struck a nerve. When he opened them, his expression had changed. He wasn't just curious anymore. He was determined. "Get in the car," he said firmly. Eli stepped back, startled. "W what?" "No, sir, I can't." "You can," the man interrupted. His voice wasn't cruel, but it carried authority, the kind Eli had never dared to challenge. "I'm not here to hurt you, but if your last name is Turner, then I need to know the truth." The boy's chest tightened. He didn't understand what was happening, but something told him that this night, this man, was about to change his life forever. Eli gripped the rag, took a shaky breath, and slowly nodded. The car door swung open, and with one hesitant step, Eli Turner climbed inside the vehicle that would carry him straight into a past he never knew existed. The leather seat felt too soft beneath Eli, almost wrong for a boy who usually sat on cold wooden crates or the dusty ground. He tried to shrink into the corner, clutching his rag as if it were a shield. The car hummed smoothly as it glided through quiet streets, the city lights flashing past like fleeting stars. The man hadn't spoken since Eli got in, his eyes fixed on the road, jaw tense. Finally, Eli couldn't take it anymore. "Sir, why does my last name matter to you?" The man glanced at him briefly, his expression unreadable. Then he exhaled, as though carrying a weight that had been on his shoulders for years. "Because, kid, Turner isn't just any name. It belonged to a man I once knew, a man who saved my life." Eli's brow furrowed. "My dad." The man nodded slowly. "If your father was Samuel Turner, then yes." Eli's breath caught in his throat. No one ever spoke his father's name. Not the neighbors, not the people at the diner who sometimes gave him scraps, not even the men at the junkyard who used to sneer at him. Samuel Turner was a ghost in whispers. "You knew him?" Eli asked, his voice trembling. "Knew him?" the man repeated, almost with a bitter laugh. "Samuel Turner was the bravest man I ever met, and the only reason I'm alive today." The boy's eyes widened, but he stayed silent. He didn't want to break the fragile thread of truth unraveling before him. The man continued, his voice lower now, touched with something Eli had never expected from someone so powerful: gratitude. "Years ago, when I had nothing, your father gave me a chance. When others turned their backs, he didn't. He pulled me out of the dirt, believed in me, and taught me lessons I never forgot. Everything I own today, everything I built, he tightened his grip on the wheel. It's because of him." Eli's chest burned. His father, this mysterious man he barely remembered, wasn't just a poor worker like everyone claimed. He had shaped the life of a man who now drove a car worth more than everything Eli had seen in his lifetime. And yet, here Eli was hungry, ragged, mocked by strangers. Then why did he leave us with nothing? Eli whispered, his voice cracking. The man's expression darkened. "That's the question, isn't it? And one I intend to answer. But first, Eli, I need to show you something." The car slowed, turning toward the outskirts of the city. Eli pressed his face to the glass, his heartbeat quickening. They weren't heading back to the shack. They were going somewhere else. Somewhere important. Somewhere that held the secret of who Samuel Turner really was. The car glided off the main road, crunching over gravel until it stopped in front of a gated estate. But this wasn't like the flashy mansions Eli sometimes glimpsed from afar. It was older, quieter, with ivy crawling up stone walls and lantern lights flickering gently along the driveway. The man stepped out, and Eli followed hesitantly, his worn shoes crunching against the gravel. The gate opened with quiet buzz, and the boy's chest tightened. He felt like he was trespassing into another world. "Come," the man said. His tone wasn't harsh, but firm, leaving no room for hesitation. Inside the house, Eli's senses were overwhelmed. Polished wood floors gleamed under chandeliers. Old portraits lined the walls, their painted eyes following him as he walked. It smelled faintly of leather, books, and something sweet, like fresh bread. The man led him into a study. Behind a massive oak desk sat shelves stacked high with old files and ledgers. He pulled one from the stack, its spine worn, the pages yellowed. Setting it gently before Eli, he opened it. "This belonged to your father," the man said quietly. Eli froze. His father's handwriting filled the pages, sharp, careful strokes. Each page was a record, Names, numbers, dates, notes about meetings. But not of debts or expenses. They were records of people, families, workers, strangers, who had been given money, food, jobs. He kept track of everyone he helped. The man explained. Your father wasn't rich in the way people think, but he was wealthy in kindness. He gave more than he ever kept. Eli traced the ink with his finger. His throat tightened. This ledger wasn't about money. It was about legacy. The man's voice dropped lower. What your father didn't write down here is how much he risked. He stood up against men who wanted power at any cost. He made enemies, dangerous ones. When he died, it wasn't an accident. Eli's eyes shot up. What do you mean? The man closed the book with a heavy thud. I mean your father was silenced. And those who wanted him gone thought they erased his legacy. But they didn't count on you. The boy's chest pounded. Him? A skinny kid who scrubbed cars for $1? The man studied him, his gaze sharp but not unkind. Eli, your father once saved me. Now it's my turn. You deserve to know the truth and to finish what he started. Eli's mind raced. A part of him wanted to run, to escape back to the safety of his tiny shack. But another part, stronger, fiercer, felt something awaken inside. For the first time, Eli wasn't just a boy with worn-out shoes and empty pockets. He was Samuel Turner's son. And that meant more than he ever realized. The fire in the study crackled, casting dancing shadows across the shelves. Eli sat stiff in his chair, the old ledger still in front of him. His father's words stared back at him from the yellowed pages, whispering a man he barely remembered but suddenly felt closer to than ever. The man, Mr. Harrison, as Eli finally learned, leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. His gaze was steady, almost testing. Eli, he said, his voice low but deliberate, you've been given the short end of life. I know that, but I also know you carry something most don't, grit. And that, my boy, is worth more than money. Eli blinked. He wasn't sure if this was encouragement or setup. Why are you telling me all this? He asked cautiously. Harrison leaned forward. Because your father trusted me, and because I see the same fire in you. I'm offering you a chance, one that could change everything. Eli frowned, uncertain. What kind of chance? The older man opened a drawer and slid a slim envelope across the desk. Eli hesitated, then picked it up. Inside was a check, not blank this time, but written in his name. His eyes widened at the number. $50,000. He nearly dropped it. I can't take this, Eli stammered, pushing it back. But Harrison only smiled faintly. That's the right instinct, which is why I trust you with it. This isn't charity, Eli. It's an investment. I want you to work for me. Learn, grow, build yourself. Your father believed the future could be better. I believe you can make it happen. Eli's pulse raced. The man was serious. $50,000? He couldn't even imagine what that amount meant. It could pay off his family's debts, put food on the table, maybe even give his little sister a chance at a better life. But something gnawed at him. Why me? You could hire anyone. Someone smarter, stronger, more qualified. Harrison's gaze softened. Because those people only see dollar signs. You see worth where others don't. You wash my car with more care than most men give to their own homes. That's not weakness. It's character. And that's what your father had. The room fell silent, except for the ticking of the old clock. Eli stared at the check again, his thoughts colliding like storms. Fear battled with hope. Doubt wrestled with longing. He felt small, unprepared. But deep down, a voice rose inside him, one he hadn't heard before. Maybe, the voice whispered, this is the moment Father prepared you for. Finally, Eli looked up, his jaw tight, his eyes steady. If I take this, I won't waste it. I'll work harder than anyone. But I don't want to be handed success. I want to earn it. A smile broke across Harrison's face, rare, genuine, approving. Spoken like a Turner, he said. And just like that, Eli's life tilted on its axis. The next morning, Eli woke before sunrise. Sleep had been impossible. His mind replayed Harrison's words all night, along with the weight of the $50,000 check tucked inside his worn wallet. He hadn't dared to show it to anyone, not even his mother. Something told him this wasn't just money, it was responsibility. When Eli arrived at Orion Tower, Harrison was already waiting in the study. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. Instead, he placed a small lockbox on the desk. "This," Harrison said, tapping the lid, "is your first test." Eli eyed it warily. The box was heavy, iron-bound, old but sturdy. "What's inside?" he asked. "That's not the question," Harrison replied. "The question is, what will you do to find out? And more importantly, how far are you willing to go to prove you're ready?" Eli frowned, confused. "I don't understand." Harrison stood, his presence filling the room. "By the end of the week, bring this box back to me, opened. No force, no breaking apart. There's a way to unlock it. If you can figure out, you'll prove you have the patience and vision to handle greater things." Eli felt his throat tighten. He wasn't a locksmith. He wasn't a genius. He was just a janitor who knew how to scrub floors. Still, something in Harrison's tone made him straighten. "And if I fail?" Eli asked quietly. "Then you'll walk away with the check and nothing more. No shame in that. But if you succeed," Harrison's eyes glinted, "then the real work begins." Eli carried the box home that night, its weight far heavier than its size. His family eyed it curiously, but he said nothing. Alone in his small room, he set it on the table and studied it by lantern light. The lock wasn't ordinary. It had strange markings etched into the metal, symbols that looked like they belonged in his father's old ledger. His heart skipped. Could this be connected to his father? For hours, he traced the grooves, flipped through the ledger, and whispered his father's words himself. "The world may not see you now, but when your moment comes, don't be afraid to show who you are." By dawn, his hands were smudged with ink, his eyes bloodshot, but something told him he was closer to understanding. The box wasn't just a test. It was a message, and Eli was determined to solve it. Eli's hands trembled as he turned the brittle pages of his father's old ledger. Numbers, notes, and faded scribbles filled the margins. But then he noticed something he had overlooked for years. At the bottom of one page was a set of symbols. The same symbols etched into the lock of Harrison's mysterious box. His pulse quickened. Could his father have known? He aligned the ledger beside the lock, tracing the markings with his finger. One by one, the symbols revealed themselves as a sequence, a code, a pattern. Slowly, carefully, Eli pressed the grooves on the lock in that order. Click. The box creaked open. Inside was not gold, not jewels, but a single folded note and a worn photograph. The note read, "If you've come this far, you understand now. Real wealth is not what you take, but in what you build. I saw that spark in your father, and I see it in you. The door to Orion's legacy is now open. Harrison Kane." Beneath the note was a photo. His father, standing proudly beside a young Harrison Kane, both men smiling, their hands clasped. Eli's breath caught. His father hadn't just been a janitor. He had been Harrison's friend, his partner in building Orion Tower. The ledger he carried all his life had been more than numbers. It was the blueprint of a vision. Eli realized then, this wasn't just Harrison's test. It was his father's legacy. The next morning, Eli returned to the mansion, the box in hand. Harrison's eyes widened with pride when he saw it unlocked. "You've done it," Harrison said. "Not because you broke a lock, but because you honored the past and trusted your vision. That is what makes a leader." In that moment, Eli felt the weight of years of invisibility lift from his shoulders. He was no longer the poor janitor mocked by circumstance. He was a man carrying two legacies forward, his father's and his own. From that day on, Eli walked into Orion Tower not with mop, but with purpose. Employees who once ignored him now rose when he entered the room. He was more than an heir to wealth. He was the heir to a vision built on integrity, humility, and resilience. And he would never forget the words that carried him there. "The world may not see you now, but when your moment comes, don't be afraid to show who you are." Backhand index pointing right final takeaway for viewers. This story reminds us that greatness often hides in the ordinary. The world may laugh, mock, or overlook you, but destiny has its own timing. Stay true, stay honest, and when your moment comes, rise. Sparkles if you enjoyed this story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspirational stories that will touch your heart and fuel your spirit.